stop loving me today. Though I stood by my man, guess I'll grab another quarter and call someone who gives a damn.
So you have an album,
Okay.
The Art of Dreaming.
Yes.
It came out what in middle of March. So
Yeah, I think the actual release date was March 18th to all the digital platforms and
right. And how did that go? What's it like
it was-
releasing an album in these days and times for you?
well, it's really fun. You know, I mean, I have been making music all along, and for the last couple of years, I had started releasing some EPs on my own, and that was a lot of fun, and it actually getting quite a bit of attention. But it actually caught the attention of a good friend of mine, Chuck Rhodes, who I used to work with at Giant Records when I was on Giant Records and had 2 records out there, and he saw what I was doing with the EPs, and he was saying, "Hey, Deb, why don't you let us help you with that?" And I go, "Well, hey, be my guest." So the thing that's been fun for me working with Audium, Nashville BFD, is to have a team,
Right.
you know. So a lot of the loose ends get picked up, and a lot of great things happen, like talking to you, you know, that might have happened, but may not have. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
excited about it.
Cool. So, I mean, you've been doing music, making records since the early 80s, I believe. So the music business changed quite a bit. Is it changed for the better or for the worse, or is it just different for you?
Well, actually, I started a little bit earlier than that.
Okay.
In the late
So
70s, probably. Yeah, but my biggest success, the thing that really got it kicked off for my own single career was in the 80s, 83 and 84, when I had Baby I Lied, which was a pop record and a AC record and country record all at the same time. So actually the promotion people called it the record that wouldn't go away. And I was going, well, that's all right with me. You know, and it's really still true. It's still played all the time. It has carried me around the world. The only place that I haven't made it to is New Zealand. Not the only place, but one of my favorite places that I have in my mind I want to come to. But it has changed a lot. You know, I mean, used to, we were making our demos on reel-to-reels and pitching them on cassettes,
Right.
you know, and I've gone through every kind of change in recording format that you can imagine. Actually, my Let Me Be the First album on RCA was the very first totally digital record ever to be recorded and released out of Nashville.
Right.
So I've always loved trying to stay on the cutting edge of things. And so change is sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's never been too scary to run me off.
Good on you. So what were circumstances around the recording of The Art of Dreaming? Where and when did you record the album?
Well, I recorded a lot of the tracks at Starstruck, and it was so much fun. Those were songs that I'd been wanting to sing for a long time. And then there's a few cuts on the tracks on the album that I kind of had in my back pocket that I'd already cut and had always wanted to put on an album. And so it's kind of a blend of those two. And I'm excited about it. You know, I mean, every time you go in the studio, it's a fun experience. And to be in there with your friends, it's just, I love every aspect of it. I love the songwriting, the recording, and then I truly love to get out and perform.
Cool. Well, speaking of fun, the one that I think is the most fun, or one of the most fun, is Blue Collar Baby. It's a good rockin' tune. Tell me about that one a little bit, if you don't mind.
He's my blue collar baby, good loving, hard working man as any man can be. He's my blue collar baby, I'm a blue collar lady, and that's all right with me.
Oh yeah, Blue Collar Baby. I love that song. It's so much fun. I wrote it with one of my favorite people. You may be aware of who he is. His name is Al Anderson, Big Al Anderson.
Oh yeah, was it the guy from NRBQ?
Yeah, he sure was. And actually, the Rolling Stones magazine, I don't remember what year it was, but they had him in a list of the top 100 guitar players of all time.
Yep. He's cool.
He's definitely got a unique style. And, you know, when he moved to Nashville, we just hit it off and started writing some songs. So Blue Collar Baby is one of those that I had in my back pocket. And I just loved it. And I thought the timing was pretty cool for right now, too, with all the stuff in the world, you know, the blue collar workers, you know, that sometimes they get the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a blue collar family. My parents were automobile upholsterers. And actually, my mother and daddy actually recorded and not recorded, but upholstered and designed the interior of Elvis's first bus.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, so when I was about 3 or 4 years old, yeah, I got to camp out in Elvis's bus, and I tell people, oh yeah, I camped out in Elvis's bus. I slept in his bed, but of course he wasn't there. But still, it's every girl's dream. But yeah, you know. But I mean, I've watched my parents create a life and a lifestyle for us. I have 2 sisters, and I was born and raised. We were all born and raised in Memphis, and you know. They worked really hard. They played really hard. They had fun. And that's what I guess I have just a soft spot in my heart for blue collar workers, the oil guys, the steel people, just everybody, policemen, firemen, you name it. I love them all.
Yeah.
So this song is kind of, first of all, it's got that Al Anderson groove to it. And then we just had fun. To me, it's sort of like a little love letter to the blue collar babies.
Cool. And it's followed by a completely different sounding song, Someone Like You, almost like an acoustic ballad, almost Dylan-esque in its sound. So quite a few different sounds that you mix up on the record. Was that done on purpose or just kind of happened that way?
I don't need a truckload of money, a big fine house, a car that's brand new. I just need to feel something real. All I need is someone like you.
No, it didn't just happen. It just happens that way that I have a real broad interest in music.
Right.
And almost every one of my albums, you know, definitely I'm in Nashville, and this is the base for my career. And I grew up, you know, about 200 miles away from here in Memphis. So it's got that feel of Nashville. Sometimes I'll say my music is sort of somewhere between Nashville and Memphis. And so in this case, it kind of wound up about in Jackson because of the rockabilly stuff that's on there. And the song you just mentioned, I wrote with my great friend, Gary Nicholson. And it's just a kind of a soulful song. I like to mix it up. You know, I've got some real country stuff on there. I've got a couple of things that are sort of pop R&B, and classic stuff. So, you know, I like to mix it up.
Right. Well, there's one called All or Nothing at All. It kind of has that classic Phil Spector, Ronettes drum beat thing going on behind it. And it's kind of a big stadium sounding record.
Don't touch me if you don't love me. Don't lead me on, just leave me alone. Please let me go before I'm too far gone. 'Cause baby, if I'm gonna fall, I want it all or nothing at all.
I just love the way the dynamics fall on that song.
Yep.
And when we go in the studio, and I'm sang through it on my first vocal, Chuck Rhodes from the record label, he goes, well, I won't say exactly what he said, but he's like, that's it, we got to do that, you know. But so that kind of sold it for him. I don't know, I just felt like, and I feel like at the right timing that song hopefully will pop out, because to me it has that broad, it's got the country feel, but it's got that pop, like you said. You pinpointed it, kind of a Phil Spector dynamic to it, which that's cool that you picked up on that. Thank you.
It's that doom, 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 you know, it's like, Baby, I Love You all over again. There you go. Now, you mentioned Elvis, but if I'm not mistaken, you at one point worked with Roy Orbison, right? And early
that was totally purely by I'm not going to say accident. I'd rather think of it as kind of fate. God put me in that place. I used to work, there was a place in Nashville. It was called the IHOP, and it was at the top of Music Row.
Okay.
And I mean, I was so new in town. I didn't realize it at first, but all those characters that were in there were like different producers, songwriters, recording artists. But the more I got a little wise to it, I noticed that. But I was a terrible waitress, so I didn't work there for very long. I was horrible. But the cool thing was, like, I knew the cook and I knew the lady, the redheaded lady named Lou,
Right.
that
Of
greeted
course.
everybody at the door. So I could go in there at the IHOP and eat anytime and not feel like, Steve Martin and the lonely guy.
Right.
Because I knew all the people that worked there. But one day I was sitting in there and I eating breakfast, and I glanced across the room and I see this guy with jet black hair.
Right.
And this other guy with kind of salt and pepper hair. And I'm thinking, I know they've got to be in the music business. I was about 18 or 19 years old.
Right.
And so I got my courage up and I walked over to the edge of their booth. And don't ask me why I said this, but I walk up and I go, excuse me, but are y'all in the insurance business? They go, no, darling, we're in the music business. I slide into that booth and I go, that's what I was thinking. Listen, I'm a singer and I'm trying to get started. I mean, really, seriously, I'm lucky that they didn't just toss me out on my ear.
Right.
And go, look, like, girl, we got eggs to eat here. We don't want them to be cold. They were so sweet to me. But, I really never thought I would see them again. And let me say that the two people that I invaded their breakfast was turned out to be Roy Orbison and Joe Melson. And,
Nice.
They wrote
Yeah.
pretty well, and they did a lot of music together.
Yep.
So I left and, I went on back to my apartment that I had gotten down on Music Road, one of the older houses. It was actually like a room in one of the older houses. And I was lucky, though, because my room had its own bathroom in it. Everyone else in that big old house had to share a room down the hallway. So I felt like I got the lucky room. But so I went down to AFTRA one day, American Federation of Radio and Television Artists. And I walk in and I go, hey, I just wanted to say, I got a phone now. And they were going, man, we are so glad to see you. We've been looking for you. Guess who's been looking for you? I said, I have no idea who. And they say, Roy Orbison and Joe Melson. I said, you are kidding me. And so, I don't know if I called them or they called me, but we got hooked up, and Joe was putting some background vocals on. You remember K-Tel, those kind of discount records where they put a lot of different
TV. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think this was more or less one of those kind of things. It wasn't one of Roy's big hits, but it was so sweet of them to give me the opportunity to get the experience, and plus the great story and great memory, and the $87.50 didn't hurt either.
No, that's big money back then.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. I got it twice. Each song.
Now, about
that beat the 65 cents an hour at the IHOP.
I'm sure. Yeah. And while we're talking about it, for folks in New Zealand, IHOP is the International House of Pancakes, correct?
Right.
There you
right.
go. Anyway, now songwriting-wise, you co-wrote most of the songs, or almost all of the songs, on the new album, and you also worked with, if I'm not mistaken, Shel Silverstein, who's quite the songwriter back in the day. So I'm wondering what you kind of learned, if anything, from him when you went off on your own.
I learned so much from Shel. He was such a character. He looked like a pirate,
right,
and he kind of talked like this. He had this real gruff voice.
Right.
And when I first moved to town, I gravitated to some of the coolest people. One of my close friends was the secretary or the office manager, I guess you would call her, at Waylon Jennings' office. And it was Waylon Jennings, and it was Tom Paul and the Glazer brothers, and it was Kyle Linning was in there getting his production skills together. He went on to produce great things on Randy Travis, and John Hartford would drop by when he would roll through town. In fact, he wound up marrying Marie, my friend. And another character that would drop by every so often would be Shel Silverstein. Well, I had just gotten off of this tour. That was 1974. I'd just gotten back from Russia, with on a State Department tour with Tennessee Ernie Ford.
My God.
It was part of a thing with, it was an Opryland exchange thing.
Right.
And I had just gotten to work there that past summer. So I kind of gotten to make a little bit of money using my talent. So that was good. But I was kind of at a crossroad because I liked Opryland, and it breeded a lot of great talent out of there who, if I named them, you would recognize them over the years. But I was afraid that if I worked there too long, I'd get used to a regular paycheck, and I might lose my reckless spirit of getting out there and making something really happen that had to do with being an artist. So Shel had blown into town over at Waylon's office, and I said, "Hey, Shel, I'm going to be singing at the happy hour over at the Spence Manor," which was just right there at the top of Music Row too. And I said, "Would you come by and hear me and let me know what you think?" And he goes, "Sure, I'll do that." So he comes by, and I'm up on stage with my little band, and there he was. He showed up. So after it was over, I sat down beside him. I was going, "Well, what'd you think?" He goes, "Well, I think you got a great voice." And I'm like, "Oh boy, I'm getting ready to be discovered." And then he goes, "But there's a lot of great singers in Nashville." And so I felt a little deflated. He said, "Have you ever thought about writing songs?" And I said, "Well, I've written poetry, but I've never written any songs." He goes, "I think you ought to think about it." He goes, "You know how good you feel when you're up there on that stage?" And I'm like, "Where is he going with this?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That feeling goes away, doesn't it?" And I was like, "Well, you've got a point there." "Yeah, it does." And he goes, "I think you ought to think about writing songs because you could write your own direction." Right. He goes, "A song is something that you can keep with you forever." And he goes, "And besides, the sun doesn't shine on the same dog's back every day." Right. And, it didn't take me long to figure that one out too. Right, you really can't have a number one song every week out of the year, every year out of your life.
Yep.
So, I told him, I said, "Hey, well, look, so I'm going to write something and bring it to you and see if you think I have potential, because I don't want to make a fool of myself." He goes, "All right." So I had a couple a cappella songs. One of them is called 4-Leaf Clover, and the other one is called My Mother and Daddy Song. And I sang them for him, and he goes, "I think you got away with words." I go, "You do?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." So shortly after that, I took a trip. My parents were building a house in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Right.
And I drove up to Arkansas to see them. And when I walked in, my mother was in the kitchen. She was kind of doing stuff in the kitchen. And she goes, "Well, Deb, sure. What you been doing lately?" I go, "Oh, I'm a songwriter now." And it was that simple. I mean, he made that such a big impact on me in such an instant. And, I've always remembered that. And many, many times throughout my life, I've had the opportunity to work with young artists. And I always love that because, you never can. And even me, I mean, you could influence me in a heartbeat if you said something that pulled my heartstring in the right way. That we just, we should encourage each other, lift each other up, and give our best advice from our experience because, we're here to help each other keep it going.
Yep. Very good. Now, in addition to being a songwriter, you're obviously a vocalist. And I'm wondering, I'm listening to the album going, man, that voice is strong. What do you do to keep it in shape? I mean, none of us are getting any younger these days. So what do you think about it? Do you work on it?
Well, I feel like I'm really very blessed to have a strong voice. I guess I trust it, and I take pretty good care of myself,
Right.
I know I have a friend that's in radio here in the States. He goes, "What do you do to keep so healthy?" And I mean, he was bragging on me. You know how it goes. And I said, he goes, "And don't tell me you live a good, clean life and you're very healthy and all that." So it's really funny, but really and truly, I mean, I guess in a way I am kind of boring in that way. I take pretty good care of myself and I love to sing. And I think really the more you sing, the stronger your voice gets.
Right.
I mean, seriously, I remember when I was recording my albums for Giant Records. I had 2 records with them when that was during the Rock Me era.
Right.
I'll never forget James Stroud, who was working with me on my second album there. He was commenting on, that my voice was really strong. he said, I didn't know what to think. You've been out on the road a lot lately. I was kind of worried about you coming in the studio. He goes, but man, we need to keep you out there. You're getting some good, it's like lifting muscles, if you don't use your voice, you lose it. But can I just tell you I'll try to tell you the condensed version.
Okay.
A lot of that I do credit to my mother's prayer. My mother, her name is Rosetta. And when she was carrying me, she started noticing that her voice kind of had a little glitch in it like that.
Right.
But she didn't ever say anything because she knew that my daddy, he's going to like, there's nothing wrong with your voice, So she never really talked about it a lot, but she knew it. And she said, Mother always prayed for to have healthy babies, but with you, she said, I would say, please let this be a healthy baby. And please let this baby have a strong voice. And so, sometimes, honestly, I get asked the question, when did you realize that you wanted to sing? And I have to be honest and say, I think I was born singing. I think it was really an answer to her prayer. I give that a lot of credit. And I'll tell you another thing that prayer gave me. It gave me a really good reason never to walk away from it, because I do feel it was somewhat of a gift, really. Not just the voice, but the dream that's in my heart. And to walk away from that, even when times are like going, what in the world's going on now? To walk away from it, to me, I always thought would sort of be like a slap in the face to God.
Right. Now, I have to admit that you said something that's making me visualize this. You mentioned touring Russia with Tennessee Ernie Ford. We're going over to Russia. And the idea of a bunch of Russians sitting there listening to him sing 16 Tons blows my mind. So what was that like?
It was amazing. Well, so there were 13 of us with Tennessee Ernie Ford. We were all from Opryland. I'll never forget our stage manager. Remember that Alka-Seltzer commercial where it was in black and white and it showed this big stomach shaking?
Yeah.
Our Robert DeWeese, our stage manager, he was the stomach in the Alka-Seltzer commercial.
No matter what shape your stomach's in. What shape your stomach's in. When it gets out of shape, take Alka-Seltzer. Alka-Seltzer relieves the flutters, calms the nervous feeling, relieves heartburn, relieves the stuffy feeling, and relieves a headache. Fact is, today, in 1966, nothing works better than good old Alka-Seltzer. Nothing.
He's so sweet. And we have reconnected recently on Facebook. But anyway, he was calling off everybody's name. And at that time, for some reason, I decided I wanted to play the flute.
Okay.
And then, the band leader of the band that was going to Russia, and he was, real, like sort of also an executive at the part, Lloyd Wells, a great guitar player. He goes, Deb, why do you want to play the flute? I said, I don't know. I just want to. I think it would be, I just like it. He goes, yeah, but you can't sing when you're playing that.
I was going to say that.
But I was giving it my best shot. So they were calling out different names of guys. You're going to run with this one. You're going to run with that one. You're going to run with this. Deborah, you bringing your flute? Oh, yes, I've got to practice. They go, you can have the room by yourself.
Yeah, there you go.
So it was a fun tour. And then Tennessee Ernie Ford. Oh my gosh, he was so much fun. I will never forget. He was really a guys kind of guy with the guys. I mean, on that long trip over to Russia on that plane, I remember seeing the way the light was shining down, and they were all huddled around playing cards. They loved Tennessee Ernie Ford.
Right.
And then he was sort of like a father figure to me, and he was always just so sweet. And we went to Yerevan, Tbilisi, Baku, Leningrad, and Moscow.
Yeah.
And while we were over there, we also shot a television special. I don't think I ever saw it, but it was so much fun. But no, Tennessee, and listen, you have never felt anything until you've performed in a huge, performing hall with a bunch of Russians who love your stuff. It's like boom, 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 boom. It's like it rattles the whole house. It was pretty phenomenal.
That sounds outrageous. That's amazing. That's great. So, I mean, with Russia in the news these days, it just kind of, it's like, that was a long time ago, obviously. And
it was actually, it was at a time where it was definitely not a free country.
Right.
I remember I had never been out of the country. So I went to this store that my mother and I used to shop for school clothes in. It was called Casual Corners. And I thought, I'm going overseas. I need to get some new wardrobe. So I went and charged $1,000 worth of nice little jeans and different little tops, to wear over there,
yep.
which promptly got stolen, except for the ones that I wore.
Right.
But also you were instructed to carry toilet paper because their toilet paper was really rough. And then the other thing is I don't know if it's this way now, but used to, when you would go into your hotel, like I was on the second floor, I go up to the second floor and they have a floor marm and she hands you your room key and you go to your room. And then when you come out, you go out and you hand her your room key.
Right.
So they definitely keep tabs on you.
Yeah.
I mean, you could feel the a little bit of oppression, and I did get a little bit of glimpse of some tension because this girl and this guy, I don't know why they just I do know why now, but at that time I didn't know why. They just gravitated towards me, and I was like, oh, hey, I got an idea. Why don't you come to our show tonight?
Right.
So I invite them I said, you can come backstage and hang out with me. I'm just being friendly,
Yep.
And so they come backstage and I'm standing there and all of a sudden these guys in uniforms come and start yanking them around. The other side of me comes out and I'm like, you leave them alone. Those are my friends. And I started standing up for me. And then Robert DeWeese, my friend, the stage manager,
Right.
he goes, now listen here, Deborah, we're in Russia. That's KGB. And they don't want them back here. I mean, they could throw you in the gulag, like, whoa.
It's not where you want to be.
It scared me.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But you know what? And this is the last thing I'll elaborate on that. But this is just showing that other side, because the performing and all the friends and everything and Tennessee Ernie Ford was phenomenal. But later on, they called my room and said, I said, are you okay? And they said, yeah. And they said, would you like to meet at the zoo? And I said, okay. And they told me how to get there. So I go out and I go meet them at the zoo. We're kind of walking along. And at that time, their zoo didn't have quite the big kind of animals that we have.
Right.
I didn't see any anyway, but she was just saying, we look a lot alike. And I go, I thought the same thing. We look a lot alike. She goes, then she suggested that maybe I could give her my passport.
Ooh, they want.
And I said, I really like you a whole lot. I'd love to do that, but I am not going to part with my passport. I said, but look, here's what we could do. I said, maybe one of my band members would marry you. And if someone would marry, you, then I guess I could marry Nicholas just long enough to help y'all out. Well, guess what? Nobody wanted to marry her. And I go, well, what's that say about me? She's supposed to look alike.
Oh, man.
Just all kind of funny stories. Some of them are totally off the wall and not any relevant to the music, but still, it just made the trip so colorful.
Yeah, I'll bet. Yeah. Now, The Art of Dreaming, this is your first album of new material in quite a while. Are you... Mm-hmm. What have you got next in mind? Are you going to wait another 10 years or what?
No. Can I show you a picture of the album so you can show your audience?
Yeah, please.
Here it is. The Art of Dreaming.
Excellent.
And thank you. And there's the back.
Yep.
And look, you can get it just anywhere. But I love it when people writes me at DeborahAllen.com.
Right.
Because, I can always sign it, personalize it, and send it back to you. I still get a thrill out of that as long as I've been doing this,
Yeah.
But I've got a lot of things that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking, well, first of all, I am going to be writing a book.
Ooh.
And it's my plan to call it The Art of Dreaming.
Right.
Because like I was saying to you before, honestly, that feeling that gets in everyone's heart, it doesn't have to be singing. It could be, being an architect or, who knows what, or working in radio and being a music connoisseur like yourself. They place that dream, and God places that dream in your heart, and the art of dreaming is believing, keep on believing. And so I'm going to sort of use that as a springboard to use some of these incredible pictures I've run across recently. They say every picture tells a story. Well, this is going to be sort of like a coffee table type of book, but it's going to have an equal amount of writing as pictures. So that's something that I'm working on. And then I definitely have some more recording projects in mind.
Excellent. All righty. And who knows, maybe you can make it down to New Zealand someday.
Who knows? I hope so. I hope you invite me. I hope.
Well, you're invited.
What's the coolest place to play down there?
Well, there's quite a few places. Well, in Auckland here, we have a place called the Tuning Fork, and there's a big and then there's like a 12,000 seater stadium next to it and stuff. And there's a little place called the Wine Cellar and the Whammy Bar. There's all sorts of great.
All right.
places. So yeah,
that is so cool. Well, do y'all do any festivals down there?
Yep. Especially in the summertime, which is January. So.
Hey, that works out nice for me.
And there's a big festival in Australia that blues and rock and country festival, and so they come from there to back and forth. So there's stuff happening.
Is that called TAM? Something?
No, I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but it'll come to me shortly. But so there's lots of stuff, and a big Americana scene here. In fact, there's quite a few Kiwi musicians in Nashville and vice versa. So.
Yeah. Well, I love writing songs. I've got probably over 2,000 songs. That's what got me started on the Best You Never Heard project.
Right.
And so I've got a lot of songs to draw from, and I'm continuing to write a whole lot more. So I just sort of fly by the seat of my pants, and let God figure out where I'm supposed to be, because if I tried to figure out on my own, it would never work out the way I was like, I'm going to do this.
Gotcha.
But, it's just that way, and I think that's a good way to be. So I hope the winds blow me down there to.
It's the Byron Bay Blues Festival is the one I was thinking of.
The Byron Bay Blues Festival.
In Australia. And then a lot of American artists come down there. I think it's in January it happens, and then they come over here from there. So, one
of the songs on the album is a song that I wrote with my good friend Teeny Hodges.
Oh, right.
Teeny.
From High Records and Al Green and all that. Yeah. Which song was that?
Actually, I made a mistake.
Okay.
That is not on this album, but that's a song I put out. That's a song I put out during the pandemic. It's called "What a World, What a World." It's got a fun video. Got a fun video on it.
What a world, what a world. Oh, what a world this can be. I'll bring your coffee to you, baby, just as sure as you would bring my tea.
No, the song that's kind of got that same similar feel that fits in that mode is one that I wrote with my good friend Mike Loudermilk. Mike Loudermilk is the son of John D. Loudermilk, who wrote a lot of things. Mike's one of the absolute best guitar players in the world. He can play anything. And my good friend Steve Cropper, he just like, whoa, he loves Mike. But that song's called Memphis Rendezvous.
Ah, yes. Very good. Well, it sounds like you know everybody.
Well, I've been around for a while. And like I said, I just gravitate to good friends and good music, and just like you do, So you probably know a whole lot more people than I do.
Well, who knows? It's not a contest though, but anyway, no, it's just having a good
It's
time.
just fun. To me, it's just interesting. Part of the fun of it too is talking when you talk to friends like us, you know, that we're both in the same field.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to see if we know
Yep.
if some of those paths cross and we have
Oh, yeah.
mutual friends like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Well, Steve Cropper is, I have met him once, but it was a very long time ago.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he doesn't remember.
You don't know. He's got a pretty good memory.
Okay. Very good. All righty. Well, thank you very much for spending all this time talking to me. You got some great stories. Can't wait to, we'll put it up on the web and see what happens. But yeah, come down to New Zealand anytime you want to. Good luck with the
I would
record.
absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I really
My pleasure.
appreciate it. I've had a blast.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.